Uh, don't let your friends do MEV. Don't let your friends do MEV. Yes. Yes. There are a few puns in this in these slides. Thank you for coming out this early. I didn't sleep very well, so I'm trying to do my best to get through this talk. Yeah, MEV infrastructure. Who here doesn't know what MEV is? Some people, that's really good, because that makes my presentation 5 minutes longer. So MEV, MEV stands for minor extractable value, or recently for maximum extractable value. And the idea is, so for example, I don't know, we have, some of you guys have coffee, right? And if I want to buy 100 cups of coffee from the participants in this room, I would need to pay different prices. Someone would give me their coffee for like $5, someone would give me their coffee for like $10, someone would give me their coffee for $20. So now I want to buy 100 cups of coffee, and what do? I go to all of the participants and I look for the 100 cheapest cups of coffee that there are. So this is how I would acquire my coffee. Now, if I know that someone else is going to buy 100 cups of coffee in a minute, what can I do? I can buy 100 cups of coffee from all of you for the cheaper price and sell it to this other person who wants to buy the 100 cups of coffee in a minute. And this is basically one form of MEV, where you know that someone is going to buy some goods, some currency or whatever, and you slip in right in front of them, buy it, and then sell it to them. And you make up a small difference between the price that you bought it and that you sold it to them. And this has a lot of bad externalities because it means, like, you as someone who knows how to do this, you can extract a lot of value from the ecosystem. And so because there's a lot of money to be had, to be made doing MEV and extracting value from the ecosystem, a lot of MEV infrastructure has been built over the years. And this is roughly an overview of how the MEV infrastructure looks like right now. So if you run a node, you are the validator. If you run a validator, you can also run a node without running a validator. But if you are a validator, you can either choose to build your own blocks, or you can take advantage of this MEV infrastructure and get some of the kickbacks from people extracting value from the transactions that you're putting into the block. So the validator is connected either directly to a relay or connected to MEV Boost, and MEV Boost connects you to multiple relays. And these multiple relays are connecting you as the validator to multiple builders, and builders might or might not be searchers themselves or connect several searchers. So the idea is searchers and builders are building the block. So they are the ones packing the transactions into a block and making sure that the block is kind of valid. The searchers are searching for these MEV opportunities. So they are looking at the mempool, they are looking at all the available transactions, seeing where is their value to be extracted. And oftentimes builders and searchers are actually the same entity, but sometimes they're not. And then the relay is just there to, the relays are trusted entities, which is kind of bad. But they are here to connect the builders to the validators. Because builders, they don't want to send the block that they've just built to the validator without making sure that the block is actually mined. Because if you send the block to the validator could just take the interesting opportunities that the builders found and include them in their own block, and so steal the MEV. And the relay is there to make this trusted connection. Yes, so there are a few. So if we talk about node software, so your normal Geth or Nethermind, this is all here in the validator. All of this other software is maintained by people that we don't really know, except for MEV Boost. These things, they are still under consensus, so they are very important in, if something goes wrong here, if a block is built in a wrong way, it affects the whole network. But some of the software is not open source. Most of the software in this part is not open source. Some of the software here is open source. But there are advantages of building relays without open sourcing, because you can be the quickest one, the first one, to send the block to the validator. So we have a bunch of infrastructure that is very important to Ethereum, that is not open, that is not maintained by altruistic actors in the ecosystem, but that is maintained by actors that are purely in it for the money. And in my opinion, that's kind of bad. And this kind of shows you, so this is actually the same view that you have here, but turned around. So you can see here a bunch of big validators. So for example, you have Lido or you have Coinbase. And then you have the relays. And the relays are connecting builders and searchers with the validators. And there are relays that are censoring transactions, that will not let transactions through that interact with certain contracts. And there are relays that are not censoring transactions. And because the relay is kind of a trusted entity, it's sad that they are doing this censoring. So all of these games are extremely dependent on the timing. So you have around 3 to 4 seconds to build a block in a slot. And the quicker you are with building a block, the better it is. And the longer you can take, like the longer you, or the more precise you are to get your block up until the cutoff point, where it's no longer, it's too late, the more MEV you can extract. So there are constantly transactions coming in, right? And if you wait longer, you can include more of the good paying transactions. So if you create a block at the beginning of the slot, at time 0, you only have a few transactions available. But if you wait for 2 more seconds, you have a lot more transactions available, and you can create a better block out of this. So all of this infrastructure is extremely time critical. And what some of the relays have allowed is for something that is called optimistic submission. Basically, you as a builder can submit a block to the relay, and the relay will not verify it. It will just send this block directly to the validator. And without even checking that it's correct. In theory, this is okay because the block can be verified by the relay after the submission, And if the block was bad, the person who submitted it will be banned, so you can at most submit one bad block. The problem is, if this code that bans the proposers is not working correctly, then we have a bigger problem, and we will see this in a few minutes. And you can see here that roughly 20% of all of the blocks are submitted optimistically, and 80% still are verified before they are submitted to the validators, which is the correct way to do it. And another issue that we have is private order flow. Basically, some of the builders have opened up private RPCs where you can submit your transactions. So if you say, normally if you submit a transaction, you put it into the public mempool and everyone can look at the transaction. But if you don't want anyone to look at it, except for the builders, you can submit it privately to them. And you can see that roughly 10% of all transactions never make it to the public mempool. And most of these transactions are actually MEV extracting transactions, but there are also normal user transactions within there. And if you have access to this private order flow, you have a huge advantage because you know transactions, you know all of the public transactions, but you also know some of these private transactions that no one else knows. And so you can build way better blocks than everyone else. And so the issue is, if there are entities that are better at building something, that are better at building blocks, they will over time accrue more money, more transactions, more value, and become an outsized part of block building, which is bad. So let's look at some of the issues that we had or that we're seeing. First up, timing games. As I said, you have up to 4 seconds kind of to build the block. If you're using a relay, it's a bit less because you cannot, you have to factor in sending the data, sending the blocks between the relay and the validator and the builder and the relay. And but you can see on the slide on the top, you can see the bits selected by solo stakers, and you can see most of the bits are within the 1 second range. And then you see a validator that is playing timing games, and they are selecting bits that are way later than what the solo stakers are doing. And because they can do that, they can extract more MEV, more fees than the average solo staker. And there's a disadvantage to it. You can only do it up to a point, because if you select a bit that is too that takes too late into the slot, then you might actually miss the slot because you don't get the block out in time. The thing is, if you're a big validator, if you have a bunch of nodes, you can play these timing games better than small validators. So it's an open issue here. And then we have an incident that happened on February 6th this year, where we had 9 bad blocks proposed by one of the relays. And if you remember, in the optimistic submission slide, the idea is someone or a builder submits the block optimistically, and the block is verified after it was sent to the validator. The problem here was, and then if the block was bad, then the builder should be banned. The problem here was The banning code didn't really work because they shut it off, because builders were getting banned for not the right reasons. Basically, the code was so buggy that it produced so many false positives that they just shut it off. So the automatic thing that would, like, if the network was actually being attacked, would protect the network, was shut off because it was too buggy. And so in the end, around roughly 1 ETH worth of transaction fees was lost during these blocks, and the validators have been refunded manually by the Bloxroad relay. But this also shows you, sure, the validators didn't really lose something, but we've seen 9 bad blocks on the network. The network kind of degraded a bit during this period, and so it's really bad, and there's no recourse for it, right? Like, we cannot go to the relay and say, please don't do it. Well, we can, but like, there's nothing stopping them from using this. And then we had another incident a month later, on March 13th, and this was shortly after Dencun. And with the Dencun upgrade with 4844, we introduced these commitments into the block. And one of the Bloxroute relay implementations had a bug in it that would set all the commitments in the block to the same value, basically overwrite all of the commitments with the last value. And here 16 slots were missed, and about 3.21 ETH was lost, but those were also bad blocks. So the bad blocks were mined. Oh, I think it was the other way around. Oh yeah, these invalid blocks, they were already invalid on the consensus layer, so they were reorged out. So kind of, again, this code to check, is this block bad, was not triggered because the blocks were not part of the canonical chain, because they were reorged out. And so, yeah, they have this optimistic submission, but it doesn't really work, and you're not banning the people that are doing bad work on the network. And so we're seeing a bunch of bad blocks. So please, yeah, please fix your code. And again, for example, this relay gRPC, it's not something that we test. It's not something that we test on the test nets. It's not something that is tested on with like unit tests or anything. It is made by Bloxroute. In this case, it was Bloxroute, but there are a few implementations, and they're writing their own software, but they're not testing it properly. And all of Ethereum is kind of dependent on them not being bad and writing good software. So it's kind of fun. All right, let's talk a bit about solutions. One of the solutions that is being discussed heavily also now for inclusion in Prague is called inclusion lists. And inclusion lists, basically, within an inclusion list, the validator can say, okay, I want these transactions to be included. And the builders have to include them, either have to include them, or they will just not bid on it. And there are 2 flavors of inclusion lists. Something that I call the carrot and the stick. The carrot one is a very intuitive one, very simple one, and it's kind of like the nice way of doing it. Basically, you allow the validators to specify which transaction they would like to include, and then the builders can decide, do I want to include them, or do I just not bid on the block? And so builders can still, because there are these censoring relays, right? And there are these censoring builders. They will not include some of the transactions. With inclusion lists, these builders can just say, okay, I don't want to include this transaction, so I'm not going to, and I will just not bid on this block. And they will lose kind of lose funds. They will lose market share, and the people who are willing to bid on the block with the inclusion list will gain market share. And yes, and the carrot part is blocks that do not include the transactions are still valid. So if I say, builder, please build a block with these 5 transactions, and the builder sends me a block that doesn't have these transactions, the block is still valid. So I can still decide, okay, it didn't include my transactions, but the block is so good, it gives me so much transaction fees that I'm still going to include it. And now the stick version. Again, validators specify which transactions need to be included by the builders, but they can either be included in the block that is being built right now, or the next block. And so the block builders are forced to build a block with the transactions. Or they will lose out on potentially 2 blocks. And so the idea is, I as a validator can force my block builder, but also the block builder of the validator after me to include those transactions. And blocks that do not include these transactions are invalid. So that kind of means the inclusion lists are part of the consensus now, and nodes need to nodes need to verify them, and it's not possible to build a block anymore that does not include the transactions. This is a very simple solution, and it's not a part of the consensus. It's just part of this validator infrastructure, so it can be done without a hard fork. This solution requires a hard fork, but it's also kind of a bigger incentive for builders to start, or for relays to stop censoring and start including transactions that they would otherwise not like to include. And this is one of the solutions that's being worked on, and the other one is EPBS, which stands for Enshrined Proposer Builder Separation. And the idea is with this MEV infrastructure, you kind of have this distinction between the proposer of the block, so the validator, and the builder of the block, so the builders and relays and searchers. And the big problem right now is the intermediary, which is the relay. And so as I said, the relay is trusted. You as a validator trust the relay that it will deliver good blocks to you, because you're signing them without knowing what you're actually signing. And the builder is trusting the relay that the relay is not taking away their MEV, their transactions. And EPBS are ideas around how to get rid of this trusted intermediary. There are multiple proposals that are being actively discussed. So I will not go into the proposals that are there right now, but those are kind of the wish list that we want proposer-builder separation to have. So the builder is sure that if they reveal their transactions, they will also be included and they will get the money and no one else can take the transactions. If reorgs happen, everything is still kind of working. Builder withholding safety means that if someone sends me a blinded beacon block and I sign it, they cannot withhold this information from me. Unconditional payment is I either get to build the block or I get refunded. So I get paid in the end for the service that I provide, both the builder and the validator, and then proposal safety. All right, I think I'm almost over time. So practical things to do: run your own node. You don't need 32 ETH to run your own node to validate the network. You only need 32 ETH if you want to build your own blocks. If you're running a validator, build your own blocks. You don't need to use this MEV infrastructure. Your node itself is capable of building blocks. You might miss out on some of the MEV payments, but you are a good, honest node in the network. If you decide to use MEV, the MEV infrastructure, use a non-censoring relay and set a minimum bit on your node. Setting a minimum bits kind of says if the relay, if the block that I'm building, so you're always building a block locally. If the block that I'm building locally is only, I don't know, 20%, 30% worse than the block that I get from MEV Boost, then I prefer to build my own block because I know I'm not censoring any transactions. If inclusion lists are available, opt into using them, opt into your node producing inclusion lists for other nodes, for other validators, and then also get involved in specifying and building this. As I said, with the EPBS, it's still active research, so there's a lot of things going on. And don't let your friends do MEV, and also don't let your friends do LSD. Liquid staking derivatives is also kind of bad. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marius.